Yu-Gi-Oh is a very expensive game, especially in this format, but it does not have to be. Here I have brought 5 different budget decks, all below the price point of around 130 bucks. So not especially the cheapest. However, they are at a price point where all the decks I'm going to be showing are quite competent and can definitely hold their own in the current competitive landscape. Now, I'm not going to be claiming that these decks are amazing by any stretch of the imagination, or that they're necessarily top tier. However, what I am saying is you can take them to locals and you can definitely get a win or two, or even top the locals with the list that I am providing. But first, about 83% of you guys are not subscribed. Subscribing, clicking that like button, and commenting all help me out a lot in doing what I really want to do. Thank you guys so much for all your support. What is going on, guys? Rogue TCG bringing another Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG deck profiles. There's multiple of them. These are going to be budget decks. Again, as you saw from the intro, all these decks are going to be below around 130 bucks. So yeah. This first deck that I have here is going to be Thunder Dragon branded. This is kind of a brew that was initially conceptualized in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And I decided once Colossus got unbanned in the TCG to, move it over to the TCG. I tried my hardest to make this as cheap as possible. However, at the moment, the Thunder Dragon prices are a little bit, not necessarily the most expensive, but Thunder Dragon Dark specifically is around $12 a copy. And some of the branded stuff, like branded openings, also around like $5 a copy. So those cards add a significant price to the overall price total of the deck. But that's enough yapping. Let me get to the profile. Starting off the list, we're on Triple Thunder Dragon Roar. If it's sent to the graveyard or banished, we can special summon a Thunder Dragon monster from our deck instead of itself when it's returned to hand at the end of the turn. And then we can pitch from our hand to add a Thunder Dragon card that's banished or in our graveyard, except for Thunder Dragon Roar. Really good card, able to banish it from our graveyard to get lots of advantageous things, like banishing it off of an Albion or something, in order to special summon an extra extender from deck. We are on Triple Thunder Dragon Dark. Quick effect, we can pitch it to add another Dark from our deck to our hand. But it is, we can choose one of the effects to activate each turn. So if we do that discard effect, we can't get the secondary effect, or if it's sent to the graveyard or banished from a graveyard, or just banished in general, we can add a Thunder Dragon card from our deck to our hand except for itself. So if we use the discard effect, we can't use that add effect in the same turn. So it's kind of like how we have to time it. However, being able to search for another copy of itself means you can load up your graveyard on your opponent's first turn. And since it's a quick effect to discard, we can activate that somewhat like a hand trap if we have Thunder Dragon Titan on board. We're on Double Thunder Dragon Hawk, able to discard itself to target a Thunder Dragon monster that's in our banished zone or in our graveyard to special summon it. And if Thunder Dragon Hawk is banished or sent to the field to the graveyard, we can shuffle any number of cards from our hand into the deck and then draw the same number of cards, like a Magical Mallet-like effect. This one is probably one of the least good ones to be sending to the graveyard. However, it is decent in the fact that we can sometimes fix our hand. We're on triple of the original Thunder Dragon, able to discard it from our hand in order to add up to 2 Thunder Dragons from our deck to our hand. Typically, we want to be adding, we want to be doing this in a chain, like Thunder Dragon, discard Thunder Dragon to add Thunder Dragon. So it's discard Thunder Dragon, add Thunder Dragon, discard Thunder Dragon, and add that last Thunder Dragon in order to make sure we get 2 in the graveyard and 1 in hand. Since we aren't playing the Link version, we don't really need too many materials in hand, of course. We're on Double Thunder Dragon Matrix. A quick effect we can pitch from our hand to target 1 Thunder monster we control and it gains power to attack. And if this card is banished or sent from field to graveyard, we can add another Thunder Dragon Matrix from deck to hand. And each one of those effects are hard once per turn. We can only use 1 of them each turn, which means we can only pitch it or banish it to add another one once per turn. We're on 1 Thunder Dragon Fusion, able to fusion summon 1 Thunder Dragon Fusion monster from our extra deck by shuffling fusion materials from face-up cards on field, graveyard, and face-up banished cards. And then during the main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, we can banish it from our graveyard to add a Thunder monster from our deck to our hand. This card is really strong. This is probably one of the main things we're going to be adding off of Thunder Dragon Dark or Thunder Dragon Roar if this card's already in the graveyard. Another good card to add off Thunder Dragon Dark is going to be Thunder Dragon Hawk. Those are probably the main 2 you're going to be adding. But Thunder Dragon Fusion really lets you access Thunder Dragon Titan. However, Colossus can be accessed without it. We are on Double Armageddon Knight, just to normal summon and send a card like Thunder Dragon Roar, Thunder Dragon Dark, or even some of our branded cards. We are on Triple Thunder, not Thunder Dragon, Batteryman Solar. If this card's normal or special, we can send a Thunder monster from our deck to the graveyard. If a Thunder monster is normal or special summon while this card's on the field, we can special summon 1 Batteryman token to Thunder Light level 1 attack 0/0. And then we can target 1 Batteryman effect monster we control in our graveyard, and then this card's name becomes that monster's name until the end of the phase. Uh, Second effect, not really too relevant since we're not playing a link deck. However, we can use those cards on field, the token as a fusion material for something like an Albion. So that's somewhat cute. We can use it as material for Branded in red too if we manage to maintain it, because it can be a material for Guardian Chimera. So Batteryman Solar is just overall a really good card, especially since we're playing Bystials in this deck in order to banish our Thunder Dragons. For Bystials, we are on one Bystial Lubellion. This is probably another one of our pricier cards in the list, being able to search any of our other two Bystials, being Magnemut or Saronir. We're playing a little bit of a low Bystial count. Bystial Druisworm is a little bit out of this deck's price range. And I was tempted to put in Bystial Baldrake. However, that's going to be more of a personal choice of your own. In order to put it in, we're probably going to have to cut cards either like Armageddon Knight or Batteryman Solar, or even Thunder Dragon Matrix. And unfortunately, I don't really see too much that's really available to be cut here. We're running one Braided Regained in order to pair with that Bystial Lubellion in order to get overall advantage over the course of multiple turns, especially since we're planning on banishing stuff over the course of multiple turns. Just being able to put them back and drawing more and more is really good. But that's going to be about it for the Bystial stuff. Now let's get on to our branded portion of the deck. For branded, we're on double Luber-Dresser Despia. On normal or special, we can add a branded spell trap from our deck to the hand. We're on double Fallen of Albaz. On normal or special, we can pitch a card to fuse using Albaz and a card our opponent controls. It's like a bad super poly, but it's mostly here just for the name, and we're running two of it just so we can do the branded line multiple times. We're on one Blazing Cartesia. This is another cute way to get the Thunder Dragons off field or out of hand and into the graveyard. So I decided to test it out here. You can also send cards, we can send Thunder Dragon Roar to the graveyard with our Grand Guganol. So that's something that I wanted to try testing out a little bit. And we do even have a Despia target for the Grand Guganol as well. We are on, and since we're only playing one, it's searchable with stuff like Branded Lost and stuff like that. We're on one Mercurier, again, searchable with Branded Lost. It's a good card we can banish from the graveyard in order to add a card that mentions Fallen of Albaz, like, I don't know, maybe Blazing Cartesia. And then we're on one Albion the Shrouded Dragon in order to send our second branded opening to the graveyard in order to get more card advantage that way. It's also another copy of Albaz in the graveyard, so we're technically playing 3 if we choose to send Albion, or we can manage to get him in the graveyard before that. We're on triple Branded Fusion, let us use stuff from our deck to summon something that mentions Fallen of Albaz. We're on double Branded Opening in order to pitch a card for effect to take a Despia from our deck and either add it to hand or special summon it. Only one in our deck is a Luber, so that's why we're playing 2 and 2. And if once we use one, we want to send the other one to the graveyard with something like Albion in order to just not draw the second opening. We're on one Branded Lost as an additional card we can potentially add to our field off Bystial Lubellion. Another card we can also search with the Luber if we already open the Branded Fusion. We're on one Branded in red. This can add back a Despia or an Albaz in our graveyard and then immediately fusion summon on our opponent's turn by banishing materials from our hand and face up field as the cost. Which can trigger our Thunder Dragons and is a really good way to summon Guardian Chimera on our opponent's turn. And we can set it up with our basic Branded Fusion combo by setting it with Albion at the end of the turn. And then for non-engine, we're on one Called By, one Gold Sark, and one Foolish Burial. Gold Sark is basically the Foolish Burial for the Thunder Dragons. In our extra deck, I'm just going to briefly gloss over it. We're on one Titan, able to pop a card when we activate a Thunder Dragon, a Thunder monster's effect in hand. We're on one Colossus, being a mistake on legs that protects itself is really strong and probably one of the main reasons you want to be even considering the Thunder Dragons. We're on double Albion, being able to banish stuff from our field and graveyard in order to, in our hand, in order to fusion summon fusion summon a card from our extra deck. We are on double Mirror Jade, the main thing we actually want to be fusion summoning, able to non-target banish a card on field. We're on double Lubellion in order to shuffle back our banished cards in order to fuse using other stuff, and also able to get cards out of our hands, like stuck Thunder Dragons that are there. One Alba Letnus. This is mostly here as a card we can send to the graveyard with Mirror Jade in order to get some sort of advantage off of that. However, it can come up if we are against a deck like Tenpai. We're on one Rinbrum. This is the main reason we're also playing the Mercuriers, because we can just send it to graveyard with Rinbrum in order to just have a different form of interaction depending on what deck our opponent's on. We're on one Despian Quiritus. Since we are playing a Luber and branded in red, it is theoretically possible that we could make it, but it's more possible that we can just summon this out of our extra deck with something like Grand Guganol. 1 Dragos Tapelia, 1 Guardian Chimera, and 1 Mud Dragon in the Swamp, and I already went over Grand Guganol being able to send functionally any one of our extra deck cards, except for Mud Dragon, or our Thunder Dragon Roar from our main deck, or even some of our Bystials like Saronir, Magnemite, or even Lubellion in order to get them in rotation. But that's going to be about it for this deck. I think it is quite competent. It is a little bit on the pricier side, barely being able to squeak underneath that $130 price point. However, I think it's a really interesting deck, and I would love to see some of y'all trying it out. But let's get on to the next deck. Next deck is also going to be a deck from a very similar time frame as the Thunder Dragons were. And I'm going to be combining them with another deck that came out at a similar time as the branded cards did. And here is Sky Striker Runic. This is a deck pretty much entirely focused on making your opponent have the least amount of fun as possible. This is a deck basically made to grind game your opponent out of the game by utilizing powerful spells like the Sky Striker spells and the Runic spells in order to both amplify the power of the Sky Striker spells by always having 3 spells in your graveyard, and always maintaining hand advantage with the Runic cards like Runic Fountain. That's the theory behind the deck. How the deck functions may be a different story entirely. However, there is the positive synergy where the Runic cards will special summon the Hugin or the Gary from your extra deck in the EMZ. So if you don't summon a Sky Striker, for example, you can still activate your Sky Striker spells since there are no monsters in the main monster zone. So neat little synergy there. But that's enough yapping about the overall deck. Let's go to the card by card. We're on triple Sky Striker Ace Ray, able to quick effect tribute itself to special summon a Sky Striker Ace monster from our extra deck to our extra monster zone. And when it's in our graveyard, if a face-up Sky Striker Ace Link monster is destroyed by battle and leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, we can special summon this card from our graveyard. It's just a really good way to always make sure you have a Link material on field, because if your Link dies, you can bring Ray back and then quick Link into something else and try and prevent your opponent from getting rid of the Link again. But Ray is quite strong, and we are playing 3 of it just because we're on such a low monster count, if you can see from only 5 cards in the deck actually being monsters. We're on 1 Sky Striker Ace Rose. If a Sky Striker Ace monster is normal or special summon, except for Rose, you can special summon this card from your hand. If an opponent's monster EMZ is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of your card effect while this card's in your graveyard, you can special summon this card, then negate the effects of 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. A neat little piece of graveyard interaction, where if you interact with your opponent, then you get to interact with them again immediately afterwards and get a free body. We were just playing the 1-up though, because we could always send it to graveyard with Hayate or search it out with any of our other cards. We're on 1 Surgical Striker Hamp. This is just a it's a searchable kaiju for the archetype, so we are playing it. We're on triple Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. If we control no monsters in our main monster zone, we can add 1 Sky Striker card from our deck to our hand, and if we have 3 or more, we can also draw a card at resolution. We're playing 3, because if you didn't notice, that isn't a once per turn, and it's at 3, so we are going to be playing 3 no matter what in every Sky Striker deck. We are on double Sky Striker Mobilize Linkage. If you control no monsters in your main monster zone, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, except for Sky Striker Ace monsters. Also send 1 other card you control to the graveyard, and if you do special summon 1 Sky Striker Ace monster from your extra deck to the extra monster zone, if you have at least 1 light and 1 dark Sky Striker Ace monster on the field and enter a graveyard, the summoned monster gains 1000 attack. If you didn't notice, that's also not once per turn, so if we can find a way to chain these, we can also just straight up kill our opponent and OTK them, which is another reason why the Sky Strikers actually work with Runic, is because if we do need to kill our opponent, we definitely can do so. Especially with linkage now in the format, because we weren't really able to do so beforehand. We're on 1 Sky Striker Mecha Modules multi-role. I know it's a little bit strange seeing only 1 when we can play 3. However, it's very searchable, and it actually does nothing by itself. It needs other Sky Striker cards in order to function at all. So we're just playing the 1. We're on triple Sky Striker Mecha Widow Anchor. It's a monster negate, and if we have 3 in our graveyard, we can steal the monster we're negating. We don't always want to steal it, but sometimes it is useful to just prevent them from using it as link material or using it for overall advantage purposes. So stealing it for the turn might be useful. We're on double Shark Cannon. It's functionally Widow Anchor, except we can banish a card from our graveyard, and then if we have 3 in our graveyard, we can choose to steal it. However, that steal is permanent, unlike Widow Anchor, so keep that in mind, because it also will turn off all your other Sky Striker cards. We're on 1 Hornet Drones. It makes a token, and if we have 3 in our graveyard, it actually gives the token stats. We don't need the stats on the token, really, so just the token's good enough because it's a Sky Striker token. We're on double Afterburners. This is removal, and if you have 3 in our graveyard, it also will pop back row non-targeting. So Afterburners is really strong. A lot stronger than Jamming Waves, but we still are including the Jamming Waves just to have Sky Striker names in the deck that we can search off of Engage. Speaking of names, we're on double Sky Striker Airspace Area 0. We can target one other card we control, excavate the top 3 cards of our deck, and if we do, add one excavated Sky Striker card from our deck to our hand, and then shuffle the rest into our deck. Then if we excavate a Sky Striker card, we have to send the targeted card to the graveyard. If this card is in the field zone and sent to the graveyard by a card effect, we can special summon one Sky Striker Ace monster from our deck. This is a really easy way that we can get Ace, Ray, or Rose out of the deck without like using our normal summon or even searching for them. So Area 0, like removing it without just like, placing another field spell on top. We have to remove it by a card effect. I don't know, something like multi-roll is really strong. We can even pop it with something like Jamming Waves too. Speaking of Jamming Waves, this pops a back row, and then if we have 3, we can pop a monster. And then that's it for our Sky Striker cards. We do have an honorary Sky Striker card in Terraforming in order to search the Area 0, but it also searches other stuff. But now let's get on to our Runic cards. We're on triple Runic Tip. We can either add a Runic card from our deck to our hand, except for Runic Tip, then banish the top card of our opponent's deck, or special summon a Runic monster from our extra deck to the EMZ, and we can only use 1 Runic Tip per turn. Almost all the Runic cards are going to have that special summon a monster to the EMZ effect, so I'm not going to go over it every single time. However, I will go over the first effect and the amount of cards they banish from our opponent's deck. All the Runic cards will functionally banish cards from the top of our opponent's deck, so we're not just controlling the game, we're also trying to remove potential important cards from the top of our opponent's deck. We are on double Runic Fountain. We can activate Runic Click Play spell cards from our hand that turn during your opponent's turn. Once per turn, you can activate a Runic Quick Play spell card. You can target 3 Runic Quick Plays in your graveyard and place them on the bottom of the deck, and then draw 3 cards. Draw that many cards. If we target 3, we can draw 3. If we target 1, we can draw 1. So on and so forth. Runic Fountain's really, really strong. It's like Orchestrated Babble, but for Runics, which if you play Orcust, you'll understand what that actually means. But if you don't, it's really fucking strong. This is what you want to be ending on pretty much all the time. It makes all your Runic cards you don't have to set them, so it means you don't instantly lose to Harpy's Feather Duster. However, there is going to be one caveat to the Runics that I actually forgot to mention on Runic Tip. Activate one of these effects, but skip your next battle phase after activation. So this is the main downside of the Runics, is after you activate them, until further notice, you don't get the next battle phase. Which means you have to go to that battle phase, attempt to enter it, and then exit the battle phase before you can try again the next turn that you have. It basically means if you're always playing Runic spells, you can never kill your opponent. However, we can also just not play the Runic spells the turn that we want to kill our opponent. That's also a solution. We are on triple Freezing Curses. Target one effect monster your opponent controls, and its effects until end of turn, and then banish the top 3 cards of our opponent's deck. Strong card. 1 Slumber. Target one face-up monster on the field. The next time that would be destroyed by battle or card effect. It is not, and then it can attack this turn. And then after applying this effect, banish the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Triple Flashing Fire. Target one special summon monster your opponent controls, destroy it, and then banish the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. And then Runic Destruction. Target one spell trap your opponent controls, destroy it, and then banish the top 4 cards of your opponent's deck. So we're playing basically extra copies of all of our Sky Striker cards, except unlike Afterburners or Jamming Waves, these are quick plays where you can pop cards at quick effect speed, which Sky Striker doesn't really have too much access to. So being able to have that resource denial and removal in a deck that didn't previously have it is really strong. We're on 1 Call by, 1 Terraforming to search any of the field spells, and double Triple Tactics talents. For our Runic cards, we're on double Hugin. On summon, we can pitch a card to add a Runic field spell from deck to hand. So this is how we get our Fountain pretty consistently. And then if a Runic field spell, if another card you control to be destroyed by a card effect, we can banish this card we control instead. And if this card on field is destroyed by battle or card effect, it just returns itself to the extra deck. And then we're on 1 Gary. Can't be destroyed by card effects. If it's special summon from the extra deck, you can target 1 non-quick play Runic spell in our grave and add it to hand. And when it's destroyed by battle, we can target 1 card in field and destroy it. This is a way we can add our Runic Fountain back from our graveyard. Since it is the only Runic not quick play that I'm playing in this list. And then for Sky Striker cards, I'm just going to briefly go over it. We are in Triple Shizuku, able to add a card on end phase from deck to hand. Triple Kagari on summon can add a card from graveyard to hand. One Hayate on attack declaration will mill a card. One Kaina on summon will prevent a card our opponent controls from attacking. One Zeke on summon will basically Farfa a card our opponent controls until the end of the next turn, which is a little bit more brutal than Farfa is. One access code and one dark to make it, and then one Sky Striker Ace Azalea in order to pop cards on field. But that's about it for this list. We're just under $105, so a bit cheaper than the previous one. But I think this deck is quite competent. If you like a more control-y deck, I think this is probably one of the ways you might want to consider going. But that's about it for this profile. Let's get on to the next one. Here we are with the next profile. Here we are with Water Dragon Lord, Ocean Dragon Lord, Water Umi Control, something like that. We are on Umi Control functionally. Deck's $113. I think it's if you're looking for something a lot more control-y than the Sky Striker list, I think this is definitely where you might want to lay your eyes on. I think this deck is fairly interesting. As interesting as it realistically could be, I'm going to be honest. It revolves around Ocean Dragon Lord Kairyu-Shin. While Umi's on the field, each player can only control one non-water monster. So it's kind of like a Gozen match of sorts, or kind of like a Tikaboo, where our opponent just kind of gets fucked. And if you have supplemental cards like Electric Jellyfish and even Doom Kraken, in order to... Jellyfish has a quick effect, you negate an effect and negate a monster effect. So we have ways to play around stuff. The main thing we're really missing is spell trap negation. However, we have plenty of non-engine space in this deck, which is where a lot of our price comes from. So we are very much able to play some bullshit in the non-engine slots. So that's enough yapping for me. Let's get to the profile. We're on to Triple Ocean Dragon Lord Kairyu-Shin. It's level 5 Water Sea Serpent. While Umi's on the field, each player can only control one face-up non-water monster. If a player controls 2 or more, they must send some to the graveyard, so they only control 1. During your main phase, you can add from your deck to your hand 1 Umi, 1 Kairyu-Shin Spell Trap, or 1 Sea Stealth Spell Trap. You can only use each effect of Ocean Dragon Lord Kairyu-Shin once per turn. Really nuts effect on it, being able to each turn add a spell that you need, so as long as this guy can stay around, you're adding a card every single turn. We are on Triple Electric Jellyfish. We can send an Umi from our hand, deck, or face-up field to the graveyard to special summon 1 water monster from our hand. Being able to send from deck is a really nice way to just turn this into an extender for any water monster in our hand. And when your opponent activates a monster effect or a spell card effect, I lied about only negating a monster. I'm just really bad at reading. While Umi's on the field, quick effect, you negate that effect, and then you can make this card gain 600 attack and defense. You use each effect of Jellyfish once per turn, and that attack and defense game is permanent. That isn't until end of turn. And then we're on 1 Doom Kraken. If Umi's on the field, quick effect, you can target 1 water monster you control, except for Doom Kraken and 1 monster your opponent controls. Special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, return the monster you control to the hand, and if you do, destroy that opponent's monster. A little bit strange on the wording. If this card's in hand, it's functionally a hand trap, where if you have Umi and a water on field and your opponent has a monster, you can target your water and their monster. You'll bounce your water and pop their monster while summoning the Doom Kraken. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can return this card to your hand, and if you do, negate the attack. You can use each effect of Doom Kraken once per turn. It's kind of just like a neat little hand trap thing that we can search. It's also a level 4 that can special summon itself under certain conditions, which is one of the main reasons it's actually being ran. We are on a small package, actually. Let's first go over this. We are on a Legendary Ocean as our Umi card. All water monsters on the field gain 200 attack and defense, reduce the levels of all water monsters in both players' hands and on the fields by 1. What does this mean? This means Electric Jellyfish and Doom Kraken are functionally level 3 monsters, while Kairyu-Shin, Infernal Queen Salmon, and Terror King Salmon are all level 4 monsters functionally. Which kind of explains our extra deck a little bit on why the levels in our main deck and our extra deck actually don't really look to add up in a reasonable way. But Let's know if you happen for that little neat little thing. Let's read Infernal Queen Salmon. If this card's normal or special, you can special summon one fish normal monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. If this card is destroyed in battle, or if this card in your owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon any number of Vile Pawn Salmon tokens. Level 1 attack, 0 defense, 0. You can use each effective Infernal Queen Salmon once per turn. Unfortunately, we don't really have a way to take advantage of those tokens with any link monsters, but I think that's fine because most of the time we're going to be overlaying this immediately. So it's never really going to have the chance to be destroyed by battle or card effect. And the card that we're summoning out of deck is going to be Terror King Salmon. Feared Salmon, Master of the Sea of Darkness. Its roe is the best delicacy in the world of the darkness. I already went over Legendary Ocean, so we can gloss over that a little bit. And now let's go over their Sea Stealth attacks. We're on 1 Sea Stealth 2. This card's name becomes yugioh on the field or graveyard. Your opponent can't target water monsters you control with the non-water monster effects. At the start of the battle phase, you can special summon from your hand or graveyard one monster that mentions Umi or one water normal monster in defense, but destroy it at the end of the battle phase. You can use this effect of Sea Stealth 2 once per turn. It's just a way to put a body on field. We can get an electric jellyfish on board in order to turn on our Doomcrack and to bounce stuff and then also negate stuff. So there is always that. So we can also summon our Dragon Lord Kairyu-Shin if they have a bunch of monsters on field to force them to send all but one to the graveyard as well. We are on 3 Fish Sonar, probably the most expensive card in this deck. If you pull it aside, you can see it's about $10 a copy. This reads, add 1 level 7 or lower monster from your deck to your hand that mentions Umi or is a water normal monster. Then if Umi's on field, you can special summon 1 water normal monster from your deck. You can use activate 1 Fish Sonar per turn, and this is the reason why you're actually playing the Infernal Queen Salmon and Infernal King Salmon in the deck, is because Infernal Queen Salmon isn't the only card that can grab the king. The king! We also got Fish Sonar that will special summon it if we have Umi on field at point of resolution. This card can add our Kairyu-Shin. If we have Umi, we can then immediately normal summon the Kairyu-Shin. And then guess what? We have a 4 and a 4. We get to search off the Kairyu-Shin, and then we can choose to make a rank 4 if we'd like. For other Sea Stealth attacks, we're on 2 normal Sea Stealth attack. When this card's activated, we can activate an Umi from a hand or graveyard. While Umi's on the field, this face-up card gains these effects. Once per turn, you can banish 1 water monster you control until the end phase of this turn. Face-up spell traps cards you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, even if this card leaves the field. And at the start of the damage step, if you're a water whose monster's original level is 5 or higher, battles an opponent's monster, destroy that opponent's monster. A way to get around the downside of Legendary Ocean of lowering the levels is the original level thing, so Kairyu-Shin, Salmon, and even Terror King will actually be a threat during the battle phase. And then last main deck card that is archetype relevant is Kairyu-Shin's Dark Reef. Send 1 face-up Umi you control to the graveyard. Special summon up to 2 monsters with different names from your hand or deck that mention Umi or water normal monsters in defense position. And then if your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon any number of level 6 or lower normal monsters from your hand and or deck. Until the end of the next turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters except for water monsters. This is just a way we can kind of flood the field with cards. We're only playing 1 because it's a Kairyu-Shin card, so we can search it with our Ocean Dragon Lord. So it's just a potential option that we have access to. But that's about it for our engine. I'm just going to briefly go over our non-engine. We're a triple pot of prosperity in order to find cards, 1 terraforming in order to find a Legendary Ocean, 1 Call by the Grave. For hand traps, we're on triple Ash Blossom, double Effect Failure, triple Infinite Impermanence. And then for back row, we're on double Solemn Strike, double Solemn Judgment, and then 1 full Armored Xyz for our full Armored Xyz package. And in our extra deck, we're on a double Stealth Kraken, functionally the duality of Kairyu-Shin, where all face-up water monsters on the field become water. So if we have Kraken and Kairyu-Shin and they have any monster on field, they can't summon anything else, which is very cute. We're on Kraken Spawns in order to float that Kraken into something. 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 Bahamut Shark, and to float into a totally awesome. 1 Silent Honor Arc, just because I think it's funny. And we are on 1 Xyz Armor Torpedo because we can make it using our 4s. 1 Xyz Armor Fortress, we can make it with our 5s, hard make it, or we can make it with overlaying it on top of like a Bahamut or something. We are on 1 Valiant Shark Lancer, just as the Trident of sorts, 1 Nash Knight, 1 CXEs, Nash Knight, and then 1 Full Armor Dark Knight Lancer in order to pair out our end board. But I think this deck is quite cool, and I would love to see people play with it more in the future. I wouldn't like to play against it, though. I don't like playing against this deck. But I think this deck is neat. Now let's move on to the next one. Also, price point, $113. For our second to last deck, you might see it, and you might be like, how is that even that cheap? I have brought Tearlament. Tearlament is now budget now, at least budget in my eyes. It isn't even above 120. It's 118 for the whole deck. Now it might look a little bit different than the Tearlament brews that I have brought previously, the Lightsworn cards. Unfortunately, the Lightsworn cards are too new and they're way too expensive, so this is kind of the brew that I'm going to have to go for. However, this is more leaning towards the original Tearlament brews of even before the Ishizu stuff, while we're playing the Dangers in order to supplement the tiers and get those additional attributes and types in the graveyard. We're playing Triple Nessie because it's a Dark Aqua, so we can summon Kaleido Heart with it, as well as use it for materials for Garura and such. But I think this deck is quite competent. I don't think that's not necessarily the best deck. It's quite sporadic, but that's how mill decks work. That's how it goes sometimes. But so that's enough yapping for me. Let's get to the profile. In our list, we are on triple Tearlament Rhino Heart. On normal or special, we can send a Tearlament monster from deck to graveyard. And if this card's sent to graveyard for a card effect, we can special summon it from our graveyard, but banish it leaves the field. And then for effect, send a Tearlament card from our hand to the graveyard. All our Tearlament cards will have triggers if they're sent to the graveyard for card effect. This counts milling. This counts fusion summoning. This counts dangers, etc., etc. It'll count everything that's in a Tearlament card. All Tearlament cards will send Tearlaments to the graveyard for effect because they're in archetype. And we're trying to make it so almost every card in this deck will do that. So that's just kind of a brief understanding of the Tearlaments. These three over here, I'm just going to briefly go over them just so you get an overall understanding. Tearlament, Havness, Merly, and Shiren, they all do different things as a first effect, but all their second effects will have the effect where if they're sent to the graveyard for a card effect, we can fusion summon using cards from our hand, field, and or graveyard by putting them to the bottom of the deck, including Tearlament Shiren. So it lets us basically fuse anything out of anything that we have access to, just turning the tiers into like the most broken polys, and we have like 3 of them. So really nice stuff there. So the whole game plan is to load up our graveyards and then try and send the Tearlaments after we have loaded our graveyard up. And we can also use the Tearlaments on field to get additional advantage. We are on a triple Tearlament Cash Tier. During our main phase quick effect, we can special summon this card from our hand, and if we do, banish one Cash Tier or Tearlament card from our field, not from our field, or our hand or graveyard. And if it's normal or special summon, we can send the top 3 cards of either player's deck to the graveyard, so it mills 3 as effect. And then if this card's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, we can send the top 2 cards of our deck to the graveyard. So overall, Cashier can mill 5 if we both summon it, and then mill it as well. So we're playing 3 of it because it's also an extender. We're on 1 Tearlament Havness. If our opponent activates a monster effect on field, quick effect, we can special summon it and then mill the top 3 cards of our deck, and then has that fusion effect like I mentioned previous. Merly, if it's a normal or special summon, we can send the top 3 cards of our deck to the graveyard. And then Shiren, if it's in our hand, we can send one other card on our hand to the graveyard for card effect, to special summon Shiren, and then mill 3 also for card effect. Shiren, I think, is the best one in hand overall. Just being able to special summon, mill 3, and then send a card from hand to graveyard for card effect is really strong. But that's basically all of our Tearlament monsters. We would be playing more if we had the ability to. We are on double Tearlament Grief, as we'll special summon a Tearlament monster or Vsauce from our deck or graveyard, and then we have to send a card we control to the graveyard of the same type or attribute as a special summon monster. And if Grief is sent to the graveyard by card effect, we can target one of our banished Tearlament traps and add it to our hand. This works very well with Tearlament Cash Tier, being able to banish cards from our graveyard, which then we can add straight back to our hand to get extra advantage. We are on, so Grief is really good. It's functionally Foolish Burial. We can special summon Havness, send Havness to graveyard. Oh look, Havness is now in graveyard and was sent there because of a card effect. So it's just another copy of Foolish Burial 2 and 3 for the Tearlament specifically. We're on 1 Tearlament Heartbeat, target 1 spell trap on the field, or target 2 if you control Vsauce. Shuffle them into the deck and then shuffle them into the deck and then send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard. And if this is sent to the hand of the graveyard by card effect, we can target a Tearlament trap in our grave and just add it to hand. So again, another way to get advantage off of that, and it's a way to remove back row. Any of the cards that mention Vsauce, Starfrost are all searchable as well, so do keep that in mind. We're on triple Tearlament Scream. If a monster is no more special summon and you control a Tearlament monster or Vsauce, Starfrost, we can send the top 3 cards of our deck to the graveyard, and then all monsters our opponent controls lose 500 attack. This is probably one of the better ones, because if it's also milled, we can add a Tearlament trap from our deck to our hand. Good effect there. Great effect on the milling, because it also counts when our opponent summons a monster, so great stuff there. We're on triple Field Spell, triple Primeval Planet Perliana. When it's activated, we can add a Tearlament monster or Vsauce from our deck to our hand. Fusions and tearlaments gain 500. If a tearlament monster we control or in our graveyard is shuffled in the deck, we can pop a card on field. Really great stuff. Again, searchable because it mentions Vsauce Starfrost in it. One Tearlament Crime. If a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated while we control a Tearlament monster or Vsauce, negate the activation if we do shuffle the card into the deck and then send one monster from our hand to the graveyard. One Meta Noise. If we control a Tearlament monster or Vsauce, we can target one face-up monster our opponent controls and basically book a moon it and then send a Tearlament monster from our deck to a graveyard. And if this is sent to a graveyard by card event, we can target a Tearlament monster in our graveyard and add it to hand. While Crime, if it's sent to the graveyard, can target a banished Tearlament monster and add it to our hand. So this is also another way we can add back banished Tearlaments via Tearlament Kashtira. We're on triple Sulliek. This is the best trap. If you control a Tearlament monster or Vsauce, we can target an effect monster on your opponent controls and negate its effects, then send one monster we control to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard for a card effect, we can add a Tearlament monster from deck to hand. This is the best one we want to mill because it's just a Rhoda if we mill it. And then this is the reason why I mentioned we can add any of the cards that mentioned Vsauce Starfrost. We're on one Trivic Karma. We can banish it from our graveyard. Its first effect doesn't matter at all. Don't bother reading it. We can banish it from our graveyard to add one spell trap that mentions Vsauce Starfrost from deck to hand. So any one of our Tearlament spell traps, which is really nice. And since it's a trap, we can activate it as a quick effect, and we can activate it the turn it was sent there, so it's just really strong overall in this deck. We're on one Polymerization, because we're a fusion deck, and this is a way we can get King of the Swamp out of our hand if we do draw it. One Foolish Burial Goods, in order to send Trivic Karma ideally, or we can send any of our other cards like Sulliek, Scream, in order to search whatever we need. One Foolish Burial in order to send cards to the graveyard. We like sending cards to the graveyard, and if we can choose which one, that's even better. We're on a Triple Danger Nessie. I'm not going to explain how the dangers work, I'm sorry. We're on Triple Nessie, one Jackalope, one Tsuchinoko, double Mothman, and one Bigfoot. Functionally, what they do, Nessie will replace itself if you discard it. Jackalope will replace itself but with a monster on field. Tsuchinoko is going to replace itself with itself. Mothman is going to make both players draw and discard for effect, so it'll trigger your Tearlaments. And Danger Bigfoot will pop a card on field. And that's what I'm mentioning is if the dangers are discarded to the graveyard, they will do that effect. We're on Double King of the Swamp. While it's in our hand, field, or graveyard, it can be a substitute for any fusion material whose name is mentioned on a fusion monster card, which is how we're going to summon some of our cards in our extra deck. But the other materials have to be correct, and we can also pitch it to add a poly from our deck to our hand, which works perfectly with the Tearlaments since it also works from graveyard. And then on last three monsters, we're on one Trick Clown, one Hat Tricker, and one Damage Juggler to be level 4 extenders that are available from the graveyard. But that's about it for our deck, about $93 in the main deck. The majority of the price is located in Tearlament Kashtira, being about almost $20 a copy. And then on our extra. For links, we're on one Cross Sheep because we can summon fusions cards to the zone it points to in order to get extra advantage. One Dark to Dark Charmer Gloomy, one Nightmare Unicorn, one Apollosa as our main Link boss monster, and one Underworld Goddess at the Closed World because we can Link spam a lot, so we can also out problematic monsters in this way. We're really good at making rank 4s, and the best one this deck can make is Time Thief Redoer since it will send its materials attached to itself to the graveyard as effect. So it'll trigger your Tearlaments, which is really, really cute, especially if you have something like Tearlament Shiren under it, because that means you can immediately fuse. We're on one Abyss Dweller. We can make it with Rhino Heart so it's actually buffed, and graveyard deck hates good. We're on one Baguska. One of their worst matchups in general is probably Fluwondereeze, even now, since they run Dimension Shifter and basically multiple copies of Macro Cosmos. So Baguska is really good against that deck. And then for fusions, we are on one Millenniumize Restrict. This is a card we can summon using our King of the Swamp and any effect monster. And it's just a negate for cards that are on field and in graveyard, and basically steals them too. We're on one Garura. This is here just to make it as if we happen to mill a Tearlament too early, we can make a Garura and then use it as link material for something like a Cross Sheep or an Apollosa in order to dig deeper into our deck. We're on one Mud Dragon for a similar purpose. We can kind of fuse into a pinch almost no matter what. It's also a level 4 water that can also protect our monsters like Rhino Heart on normal summon. We're on one Dragostapelia. We're a fusion deck. We can recycle our fusion materials by shuffling them back into our extra deck if we make Dragostapelia. So Dragostapelia is really important in this deck. It's also a monster effect negation, and you can change the level of monsters. One Rule Kalos, where it negates the special summon of a monster, and we can only make this with King of the Swamp since Kalos is banned. One Kaleido Heart. This is probably one of the main cards you want to be using because it's just really good at controlling the board state, especially if we have something like Tearlaments Celiac, where if it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, we can send a Tearlament card to the graveyard and then special summon Kaleido Heart, and then Kaleido Heart special summoned. Or if an Aqua monster is sent to the graveyard by a card effect while this card's on the field, we can target a card our opponent controls and shuffle it into the deck. So it's like a Nightmare Unicorn every single turn, and then also we'll send any Tearlament card, again, that's card, not monster, to the graveyard. So we can send any Tearlament card. And then our last card is Grapha, Dragon Overlord of the Dark World. It's also another negate. We can only make it with King of the Swamp to replace the Grapha, plus any Dark Monster, which is the Tearlament that we're using to fusion summon it. If our opponent would activate a card or effect, we can replace that card effects, like that card's effect text, until your opponent discards one card, which is them using an effect to make us discard a card, which can trigger our Tearlaments or any card that can be discarded for a card effect. But that's about it for this specific profile. I think this deck is a lot of fun. I really love milling and gambling, and I'm glad that it's finally budget enough so y'all can, gamble hard, no gambling, no future, on a budget. And then finally, let us move to our final deck. For our final deck, we are on Galaxy Eyes. I didn't realize this deck was as cheap as it was. I thought this deck was actually quite expensive for what it was. But I've only recently realized that every single one of the Galaxy Eyes cards have been reprinted, plus they've gotten more support. They have a lot of really interesting cards, specifically Photon Emperor with Galaxy 100 and Photon Jumper, just kind of changing what the deck really wants to do and making previous cards stronger like Galaxy Soldier, and cards like Melody of Awakening Dragon even stronger, as well as non-engine cards like Droplet, again, making them stronger, as well as having a cheaper extra deck card in Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord finally getting reprinted. If it wasn't reprinted, this deck would not be under the price point. But right now, it is at $105. Very, very cheap and budget. So that's enough yapping. Let's get to the profile. This deck essentially wants to make a bunch of rank 8s going first, or make an infinity or something going first, and then going second, you want to kill your opponent into the sun with something like Prime Photon or Neo Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon. By using a card like Afterglow, which will double the attack of all number Xyz monsters you currently control, basically making it very easy to kill your opponent. So let's just go down the list. 50 in the main, 50 in the extra, nice and balanced, as all things should be. We're on double Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. I'm not even going to read this card's effect. It's like a Farfa for the battle phase. It isn't good. You can special summon it by attributing 2 monsters that have high stats. Ideally, you would not want to be doing that, but in a pinch, I guess you could. We're on a double Galaxy Eyes Afterglow Dragon. If you control a Galaxy Eyes monster, it just poops itself right out of your hand in defense position. If it's detached from Xyz monster to activate that monster's effect, you can take one Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon from your hand or deck and either special summon it or attach it to the Xyz monster you control as material. And then if you activate this effect during the battle phase, double the attack of all number Xyz monsters you control. You can use each effective Galaxy Eyes Afterglow Dragon once per turn. So it replaces itself as a material on the card. It'll double the attack of everything. If it's a free special summon, this card does everything. The only reason we're not playing more of it is because you can only special summon it once per turn. So drawing multiple does nothing. And in Galaxy Eyes, it is very searchable, so we don't need to be playing more than 2, really. We are on double Photon Vanisher. Can't be normal summoned or set. You must be special summoned from your hand while you control a Photon or Galaxy monster. Cannot attack the turn it's special summoned. If it's special summoned, we can add a Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon from our deck to our hand. Any Xyz monster summoned using this card on field as material gains the effect where banish any machine. My tongue is not working with me today. I apologize. Banish any monster destroyed by battle with this card. Neat little additional effect. It's mostly here as a free extender and being able to add a card, so it's an extender that replaces itself, which is quite nice. We are on double Galaxy Summoner. If it's no more special, we can target a Photon or Galaxy monster in our graveyard, except for Summoner, and special summon it in defense position. You can target one other light monster you control. Its level becomes 4 until the end of this turn. You can use each effective Galaxy Summoner once per turn. Before, the deck wasn't really all too interested in level 4 monsters. However, with some recent cards, it becomes a lot more reasonable in order to work with them. We are on double Photon Orbital. During our main phase, we can target one Photon or Galaxy monster we control. Equip this monster from your hand to the field as that target against either attack, and also cannot be destroyed by battle. You can send this equipped monster to the graveyard. Add one Photon or Galaxy monster from your deck to your hand. You thought we were actually playing equips. No. This card is just a really weird way of rotating that can get Ghost Ogred. So there's that. We're playing 2 of it because we can search the searcher if necessary. Hello? Hi, what's up? Unfortunately, I can't deny it. No, I'm very sorry. Absolutely. Hope you have a nice day. Three, two, one. Our next card is going to be Triple Photon Jumper. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can activate this effect. Skip your next battle phase. Also specials on this card from your hand, and then end the battle phase. Not actually the worst. That first effect on release, I wasn't really too impressed about. But now that Tenpai Dragon's an actual deck, Photon Jumper just straight up ends their OTK, which is very funny. It's very, very comical. Also, if it's sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Photon or Galaxy Spell Trap from your deck to your hand. You know, use each effective Photon Jumper once per turn. We're mostly playing it for that second effect. I'm going to be honest. We're mostly playing it for the second effect. Whenever it's sent to the graveyard, by any means, we get to add a card from deck to hand, which is really good. And there's a lot of ways, like I previously mentioned at the very start of this specific profile, that there's a lot of ways to send cards from hand or deck to the graveyard in this deck specifically. We're on Triple Galaxy Soldier. We can send one other light monster from our hand to the graveyard, special summon this card in defense position, and when it's special summoned, you can add 1 Galaxy monster from your deck to your hand. This is probably one of the best Galaxy cards in the entire deck. This card's crazy. That effect to special summon isn't once per turn. Sure, the effect to add is once per turn, but the effect to special is not once per turn. So we want to basically be abusing it, and 1 Galaxy Soldier, as long as you have 2 lights in hand other than Galaxy Soldier, is an Infinity, which is an Omni Negate. We are on a Triple Photon Emperor. If this card is sent to the graveyard, except from the field, while another Photon or Galaxy monster is on the field. Important requirement on that card. While another Photon or Galaxy monster is on the field or in your graveyard, you can special summon this card in your defense position. You can use this effective Photon Emperor once per turn. After you normal or special summon this card, you can normal summon 1 light monster during your main phase this turn in addition to your normal summon or set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. So what you want to be doing, ideally, is you want to find a way to discard Photon Jumper. Grab Galaxy 100 off of Photon Jumper, and then use Galaxy 100, and once we get to it, you'll see why that works. And being able to gain that additional normal summon works, and Emperor is also an 8, so it's just an easy way to get a free 8 on board, especially for Galaxy Eyes Afterglow Dragon to just kill your opponent into the sun. We're on Double Photon Sanctuary, special summon 2 Photon tokens, level 4 2k, 2k. Defense position, tokens cannot attack or be used as synchro material. You can't summon the other monsters the rest of the turn you activate except for lights. Notice, that isn't once per turn. We're not planning on using it multiple times, but that isn't once per turn. So even if we draw multiple, it's not necessarily dead. They're in defense positions, so they can't attack. However, we can use them to link into Galaxy Eyes, so Soul Flare Dragon. So Photon Sanctuary is just a free Soul Flare Dragon. Because it needs monsters with 2,000 or more attack, which just so happens to be fulfilled by the Photon Sanctuary. We're on Double Galaxy Expedition. We control level 5 or higher Photon or Galaxy monsters. Special summon 1 level 5 or higher Photon and Galaxy monsters from our deck in defense position. The only reason we're playing 2 of this is it's a hard once per turn. Otherwise, we'd be playing 3 at 100% of the time. We're on a Double Melody of Awakening Dragon. Pitch a card, add up to 2 dragon monsters with 3,000 or more attack and 2,500 or less defense from our deck to our hand. These 2 fulfill that requirement pretty well. And it discards a card from deck to hand. I mean, from hand to graveyard, like Photon Jumper or a Photon Emperor. So it can fulfill requirements there. Here's Galaxy 100, the card that I've been mentioning a handful of times. When this card's activated, you can send 1 Photon or Galaxy card from your deck to your graveyard. If Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon is special summoned to your field, except during the damage step, you can look at your opponent's extra deck and apply one of these effects. Either banish a monster from it, so it's like Kashira Unicorn, or special summon a number monster from it to your field. So if they actually are playing a number monster, we can just straight up steal it. This card's crazy. Again, Photon Jumper, add Galaxy 100, Galaxy 100, send Photon Emperor, special summon itself, and now we get another normal summon. So there's a line that we can do to get a free 8 on board, all off of 1 discard of a Photon Jumper to like maybe activate a Galaxy Soldier or something. Also works with Forbidden Droplet. All these cards work with droplets, so I'm playing it. Double Triple Tactics Talents, 1 Foolish Barrel, and then we're playing light hand traps in order to be able to pitch them off of Galaxy Soldier, or like summon them in a pinch if we use Photon Sanctuary. We're on Triple Nibiru, Double Effect Veiler, and Double Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. In our extra deck, We are on in our extra deck, we are on double Galaxy Eyes Soul Flare Dragon, 2 light monsters, including a monster with 2,000 or more attack. If it's link summon, you can target 1 photon or galaxy monster in our graveyard, add it to hand. During our opponent's main phase quick effect, we can discard 1 photon and or galaxy cards, or discard a Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, target a special summon monster our opponent controls, and pop it. Really good piece of our turn 1 end board. And we're just playing 2 of it, just because we can. 1 Starleash Photon Blast Dragon, 2 4s. While it's XC, if this card's XC summon, you can special summon 1 photon monster from our hand. While the 6 summon monsters on the field, your opponent can't target monsters you control with 2,000 or more attack with card effects, and they can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Once per turn, during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can attach a material from this card, target one of your Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragons that's banished in your graveyard, and special summon it. That's a good way to pair with Galaxy 100, especially if you're going first, in order to banish 2 cards out of your opponent's extra deck. We're on 1 Galaxy Photon Dragon, 2 4s. Other light monsters you control gain 500 attack. You can use each of the following effects of Galaxy's Photon Dragon once per turn. You can attach 1 material from this card, either add 1 photon or galaxy card from your deck to your hand, or send it to the graveyard. If a light monster is special summoned to your field, except during the damage step, you can target one of those monsters until it becomes 4 or 8 until the end of this turn. This card is nuts. It basically sends a card from deck to graveyard, which is why we're playing Galaxy Summoner, so we can make an easy 4, as well as Photon Vanisher, so we can make 4s using these cards. Again, also with Photon Jumper, it's a 4. If we can find a way to pitch Jumper, then normal summon Summoner, we can then reborn that Jumper to make a rank 4. But Galaxy Photon Dragon is crazy. So we are just playing, we're playing 1 copy. Honestly, playing 2 probably isn't the worst idea. We're on 1 Nova to then go into Infinity. I already mentioned it's an Omni Negate. It's also kind of a little bit of a relinquished effect on it. We're on 1 Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon, 2 8s. You can attach 1 material from this card, target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Monsters you control can't attack your opponent directly for the rest of the turn except for this card. Also take control of the opponent's targeted monster until the end phase, but when this effect's applied, its effects are negated, its attack becomes 3,000, and its name becomes Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon. So we could just stack something that could use Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon. Like nothing. We're not playing it, I don't think. Yeah, we're not playing it, which is unfortunate, but the card that would stack on it, I don't think is really that good. We are on Cypher Blade Dragon. We can also use a rank 8 Galaxy Eyes as material. Can't be used as material for an XC summon. Once per turn, you can attach 1 material from this card, target a card in the field, and pop it. If this card XC summon card is destroyed by your battle, then your opponent's attacking monster, do something. That's probably never going to happen. It's a big-ass monster. It's probably going to get popped anyway or banished with SP. And then we're on 1 Galaxy Eyes Cypher X, 2 10s. We can also summon it, XE summon it by using a Cypher Dragon you control as material. I fucking lied. I lied twice in this video. Yeah, we can basically use our opponent's monster to make this thing, which is cool. Sorry, I'm bad at reading. You can attach 2 materials from this card, so we're never going to be able to use that effect if we use our opponent's monsters. Your opponent can't target other light monsters you control with card effects until the end of your opponent's turn. Once per turn during the standby, you can return 1 rank 9 or lower Dragon XYZ monster from your graveyard to your extra deck. Then you can special summon that monster using this card you control as material. So, just a cool way to change your opponent's monster into a big monster, and then change that big monster into something that actually does something. We are on 1 Neo Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon, 3 8s. You can also actually summon it by using a Prime Photon Dragon you control. At the start of your battle phase, you can attach 1 material from this card. You can make up to 3 attacks on monsters during this battle phase. If this card has Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon as material, it gains its effects unaffected by your opponent's monster effects. Just a really cheesy way to turn that Prime Photon giant number into a slightly smaller number that can attack more times. Speaking of giant number, let's go over Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon. 2 8s. If it battles during damage calc quick effect, we can attach a material from this card. Once per battle, this card gains attack equal to the combined ranks of all XYZ monsters currently on field times 200 during that damage calculation only. So how this would work if you have Afterglow on it is you attack, you detach, you gain that attack, Afterglow triggers, you put the photon from deck underneath of it, and then he'll gain double that attack that's already been gained. So with Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon on field by itself, it's going to gain 1600 attack going all the way up to around 5600, and then you double that. So now it's 1,000 something. It's a big ass number. It's like not 1,000. It's something along the lines of 12,000, something ridiculous like that. So do keep that in mind, and that's just with one Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon on field. If you have multiple Xyzs on field, may your opponent rest in peace. We can also stack Galaxy Eyes Full Armor Photon Dragon on top of it just by putting on top of a Galaxy Eyes. It can target a card on field and pop it. It's just a pop. Photon Lord's a negate that can also do more stuff if we actually have a Galaxy Eyes underneath of it by also destroying a card when it was negated. Hope Harbinger is a spell negate, and then Zeus is a light machine, but more importantly, it's a light that we can summon if we actually don't kill our opponent to actually do a different form of interaction that this deck can typically do. But that's going to be about it for this profile, and as overall this video. I think Galaxy Eyes is really cool, and I'm actually pretty interested in picking up the deck in the future and actually doing an in-paper profile if y'all were interested once the new support comes out. But that's going to be about it for this video. This video was quite long and took quite a toll on me, so I appreciate y'all's patience with me. I hope the audio in this video is a lot better than some of the other ones of this week. I apologize for any audio issues for previous videos, but thank you all so much for watching if you still are, and I will be seeing you all next time. Bye-bye. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you wanted to talk to more Yu-Gi-Oh players like yourself, I would highly recommend checking out our Discord server. Link is going to be in the description, as well as the QR code on screen. We do talk somewhat frequently about Yu-Gi-Oh and the current meta, so I would really enjoy to see you there. As well as we do recently now have channel memberships available on our YouTube channel, where we have 3 different tiers. We have Super Supporter at $2 a month, where you get loyalty badges, emojis, guaranteed comment responses, a shout out at the end of every video, as well as access to the members only Discord channel, where you get early sneak peeks at future videos. There is the Giga Supporter at $5 a month, where you have early access to all new videos about a day or two before they go up, as well as all the previous offers. And for $15 a month, we do have our final tier, which is going to be Femboy Fanatic. You get a guaranteed customized video every single month, as well as 1 hour of my time. Could be for anything you'd like. You want a duel? Absolutely. You want me to help build a deck? Absolutely. You want to play some Helldivers? Sure. I'll do anything for an hour once a month. But supporting does help me out quite a lot, and it does help me produce all of these videos. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be seeing y'all later. Bye-bye.